Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the Wit, and we're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we are taking a look at the Gears of Dreadlands set armor for the Demon Hunter class. Let's get right into it. Gears of Dreadland, 2-piece bonus. Gain 4 seconds of momentum when attacking with a primary skill. At maximum duration of 20 seconds, your primary skills deal 10% increased damage per second of momentum. 4-piece bonus. Strafing against enemies will automatically shoot your last used primary skill and also give 60% damage reduction while strafing and for 5 seconds after. While strafing, you gain 8% increased movement speed for each second of momentum that you have. 6-piece bonus, your primary skills deal 15,000% increased damage. So for this particular build, we will be using a full set of Gears of Dreadland. Obviously, we have other things to help augment its power, that being first and foremost, the Hunter's Wrath, which says your primary skills attack 30% faster and deal 170% increased damage. We're also going to be using the Focus and Restraint Rings, because these will help in regards to our primary resource generators. We're also going to be using Squirt's Necklace, as you see here, as well as Wraps of Clarity for the bracers. We're going to be using Dawn for the weapon, reduces the cooldown of Vengeance by 65%. And Valhalla's Request, because Strafe projectiles now will pierce, which is going to be important for a strafing build. Hungering Arrow, Devouring Arrow, Fan of Knives, Bladed Armor, Shadow Power, Gloom. These are all skills you want to use. Companion, Wolf Companion, which is very, very helpful. Vengeance, Dark Heart, so we can reduce the damage we're taking. Strafe, Drifting Shadow for the passives, Numbing Traps, Call of the Weak, Archery, and last but not least, Ambush. In the Knight's Cube, you must run the 9th Series Satchel, Depth Diggers, and Convention of Elements. Keep in mind, 9th Series Satchel got a nerf about 2 seasons ago, so it used to pierce up to 6 times. It no longer does that. Now it pierces only up to 4 times. This is what my Paragon looks like for your follower, Broken Crown, Flavor of Time, Nemesis Bracers. Everything else is nice to have, but it will not do too much for you tremendously. For the purpose of this particular showcase, we are going to do a greater of 60, a greater of 70, and a greater of 80. That way I can show you how the armor performs from Torment 13 through Torment 16 plus difficulty. And I will also show you basically the main plays that you want to do with this particular set armor as you're playing through it. So let's see what we got here. Alright, we go into the Greater Rift. First thing that we're going to do is obviously identify an enemy. We'll fire off our Hungering Arrow and then automatically start switching into strafing. Keep in mind that if the dungeon layout has a situation like this where you're not running into enemies for a while, you probably should then reset by firing off another Hungering Arrow when you see an enemy and then start strafing around. Now, this particular armor has a problem where if there's not a lot of enemies on screen, you will burn through your hatred tremendously too fast, and then it will put you in a situation that is not good for you in terms of trying to get around, or you will run out of hatred and have to fire off more Hungering Arrows to get it back. So it is a little bit dependent on the layout of the dungeon. On top of layout of the dungeon being dependent, you just got to be very careful with how you micromanage your hatred, because you never want to be in a situation, particularly where you're strafing around and you run out of hatred and you kill an enemy but basically stop right short dead in the middle of an explosion. So you don't want to do that. In terms of optimization, what should you be looking for with this armor? Well, first and foremost, I would say it's in your benefit to get primary resource cost reduction. The reason being that you are going to spend a lot of your hatred to be able to strafe around. So the more primary resource cost reduction you have, the less hatred it is going to cost you to strafe around. And then when you factor in the fact that every time you're strafing around, you are using your Hungering Arrow ability to get back a little bit of the hatred, it will help mitigate that tremendously, which means basically you'll be spending more time strafing around, less time not strafing around is what you want to do with this. Subsequently from there, I would recommend on your helm, crit hit chance at least 6.0%. On your gloves, I recommend these free stats. Crit hit chance 6.0%. Crit hit damage 50%. Attack speed at least 8.0%. Those free stats on your gloves will guarantee that you're able to go up another 10 to 20 greater rifts depending on your difficulty level and other types of optimization. Obviously from there, another thing that's going to be very important is to make sure that you have the max roll of dexterity on all pieces of your gear. The more dexterity you have, the stronger your Demon Hunter will be, which on top of that will determine how quick you can clear greater rifts and if you can clear certain levels of greater rifts. So definitely make sure that you get max roll in dexterity. Now from there, I would go looking further. What should you be augmenting here? Hungering Arrow, 15% wherever possible, because even though it doesn't look like it, you are, every time you're strafing around, usually firing off a Hungering Arrow as well. So you want to buff that up as much as possible. Rift Guardian, we're going to switch to our Dark Heart here real quick because we are running a little bit low on Hatred, and then we are able to fire it off. And as you can see, we take down that Rift Guardian with relative ease, but you did see we did burn through a lot of Hatred in those plays that we do. So that's why you got to keep a very close eye on your Hatred to make sure you're not burning through it quicker than you can get it back. Now, also keep in mind in terms of optimization, yes, 15% Hungering Arrow wherever possible, 15% Strafe wherever possible. Obviously, you don't take away from stats that necessarily you would need on your particular armor. This is an armor that you're not going to need area of effect things on. You could pick area radius pickup on here. I don't recommend that. Just go for max dexterity, 15% Hungering Arrows where possible, crit hit chance wherever possible. Then from there, resource cost reduction. And then if you have space left over, go for cooldown reduction as well, even though we're not using Captain Crimson. That was a greater of 60, 2 minutes and 37 second clear time. So let's jump into a greater of 70, shall we? Alright, greater of 70, same strategy as before. We're going to identify an enemy first and foremost, then we're going to fire off a couple Hungering Arrows, and then go straight into strafing. The goal here is to strafe around and attack multiple targets as fast as possible. That way we can build back up our resource generator so that we're not burning through our Hatred, which will allow us to continue to strafe around. That's really how simple this armor is. Obviously, the momentum stacks are very important because the more momentum stacks you have, the quicker you are. And right now we're doing pretty quickly. So as you continue to maintain and you continue to maintain the stacks, you will do pretty well with this particular armor. Now, in terms of leaderboard placement, where does this particular armor place into? That's a very good question. It used to be a long time ago, Gears of Dreadlands was the end-all to be-all. Obviously, with some of the nerfs, it has lost some significant amount of power. Also, you have to factor in, for this particular tier list, there is the Echoing Nightmare, which is the new endgame feature that is only available at the moment for Season 26 of Diablo, where you're fighting waves and waves of enemies, and you're trying not to die. Gears of Dreadlands does pretty good in Echoing Nightmare. However, as you're climbing a little bit higher up in the levels of the Echoing Nightmare, it does start to drop off in significant power because of all the explosions going around you. This armor really can't take too many hits. It's a bit of a glass cannon, and strafing into basically explosions guarantees that you're going to die. So it's not the most viable choice, ironically, for this seasonal journey. In fact, it is the embodiment of the Marauder set, which is the Sentry build version with multi-shot, where it is performing extremely well and is considered now one of the S-tier armors, particularly because of how well it does with the Echoing Nightmare, and it's able to climb really scary, tremendously high levels of Paragon. Gears of Dreadland, though, is still a very good option for the Demon Hunter for speed farming. So my recommendation to people who are, in fact, playing Season 26 of Diablo is obviously you're going to use your starter set armor, that being ironically the embodiment of the Marauder set for this particular season. And you're going to mostly be using that for the most part for your not your embodiment, but your Echoing Nightmare runs, and maybe some of your early on greater. But then I would recommend also making your Gears of Dreadlands set so that you could do some speed farming. Both armors are really, really good in their own retrospect. It's a matter of how quick you want to run through things. If you want, Gears of Dreadland has speed, but you're sacrificing power, as opposed to the embodiment of Marauder, where you're sacrificing speed, but you're getting a tremendous amount of power and the ability to just kind of hang back. Now, in terms of legendary gems, what should you be using on this particular set armor? I recommend Bane of the Stricken. I also recommend Bane of the Trap. And for the last gem, it is a toss-up. Some people prefer Tegook. I prefer Simplicity Strength. The reason for Simplicity Strength is this simple. Hungering Arrow is a primary resource attack. So you can increase the damage of your primary resource attack. So why would you not do that? So I recommend Simplicity Strength, Bane of the Stricken, and as well as Bane of the Trap for your legendary gems. This will help give you extra power. On top of that, when you are using Simplicity Strength, it will help kind of patch some of the issues you may have when you don't have necessarily a lot of Paragon, or on top of that, you have not had a chance to augment your armor very high. So it can kind of help you in those particular situations where maybe you're a bit under-leveled, under-stacked, not fully optimized yet. So I would definitely recommend looking into that. Now, in terms of other things that you probably should look for, obviously you want to augment your armor wherever possible. In order to do that, you need to have an ancient legendary piece of gear, that being gear that has a gold border around it, or you can have, as you see with my Wraps of Clarity, has a red border, primal ancient legendary to drop. Now keep in mind, for the primal ancient legendaries to drop, if you're playing a seasonal character, it will only start dropping after you clear a Greater Rift 70 solo. For a seasonal character, it's a little bit easier, as you just have to clear a Greater Rift 70 solo with any of your non-seasonal characters, and then all of them will have the potential for a primal ancient legendary to drop. So keep that in mind. Again, for the Demon Hunter this season, the embodiment of the Marauder set armor is actually your starter set. However, if you just decide that that's not really a playstyle that you like and you prefer this playstyle, there is not really too much hard gear to search for here. My honest recommendation is, once you get your full set armor, if you're still looking for, let's say, the Wraps of Clarity or the weapons for the crossbows, you should probably do a whole bunch of Greater Rift runs. My recommendation, pick a Greater Rift that you can clear in 2 to 3 minutes, and from there, just do 2 to 3 minute Greater Rift runs for about 3 to 4 hours. You will get to see all your crossbows that you need, that being both of the ones that were showed in this build, relatively easy. On top of that, you should probably be able to run into a focus and restraint ring that you're going to need in the build, and you definitely will run into several Wraps of Clarity and maybe potentially a Squirt's necklace. Now, if you're having problems getting a specific piece of gear, there is an alternate method for farming that you could use. Let's say, for example, you're not getting the crossbows that you want. You could go to the merchant and buy a whole bunch of crossbows that way, and you can just then simply buy a whole bunch of rare crossbows, put them in the Knice Cube with the recipe, upgrade rare. Keep in mind that uses a lot of death breaths as well as ancient veils, or not ancient veils, it's called arcane dust, is it, or ancient dust? One of the two. Anyway, that was Greater Rift 70, 3 minutes clear time. Let's go into a Greater Rift 80, same strategy as before. You're going to want to fire off your primary resource generator, being Hungering Arrow, and then go straight to strafing around. As you hit targets, you will be firing off your Hungering Arrow while strafing around, so you will be able to get back some of your resource generation a little bit better. But keep in mind, as you go higher up in the Greater Rifts, enemies become a little bit more tanky. Here, you're going to have to make sure that you have your Dark Heart Vengeance available whenever possible, because there are going to be situations that you run into where you're taking a tremendous amount of damage. As you go higher up in the Greater Rifts, you have to be careful of not getting a little too hyper aggro or aggressive, because what ends up happening is you can potentially run into a situation where you're strafing into some acid pools that you are not careful for. I know it's very tempting to try to keep a massacre bonus going in higher Greater Rifts just so you can climb more Paragon, but don't be foolish, because you are sacrificing a 4-piece chance bonus for your legendary gems. Also, when you're doing high level Greater Rifts, it's kind of in your benefit to constantly interact with the pylons, because they will be giving you elite packs, which will help clear some of the clear times down. Gears of Dreadlands is still a very good armor for high leaderboard placement because of its speed and its power, so don't be dissuaded at the fact that it has gotten some nerfs. The nerfs did bring it a little bit more down, but it's still an incredibly very good armor to use in that retrospect. So from there, I would recommend augmenting your armor with legendary gems. Legendary gems should probably be at level 80 or higher. Preferably, they say between 110 and 130 to get the maximum out of that. Obviously, if you're going for your seasonal journey or just going through a non-seasonal journey and you're still on the lower levels, you probably won't be able to level a gem up to level 100. So I recommend for those people, start at level 80. You could always go back later on and overwrite the augmentation with another gem. So that's kind of will work in your benefit. So don't fret about things of that nature. People have a tendency to fret about things and not think that they have to then swap out their gear. No, it's very, very simple. You just simply overwrite that way. But it's in your benefit to augment all pieces of your gear. In a right player's hand with full optimization and everything of the sort, you should be able to clear at least Greater Rift 130 to 135 solo with this particular build. If, however, you're struggling in that retrospect, it's okay, just go look at your stats. Probably you've done something wrong. There will be a link in the description to this set armor for those of you who are having a hard time or a need to see things on paper, which is perfectly okay. Oops, we went the wrong way with this particular run, so we got to go backward that way. It's perfectly fine. Sometimes you will get lost in one of these particular dungeon runs, despite the fact I've done them a bunch of times. I still, sometimes in the heat of the battle, will forget the direction that I'm supposed to be going to continue it. So there's that. Again, like I said, the quickest way to get Paragon this season is going to be using the Echoing Nightmares. I have touched on Echoing Nightmares in the previous video. I think it's a really fun endgame. I like the fact that you're fighting waves and waves and waves of enemies. They give you pretty decent drops in terms of items that they give you. I haven't yet augment with one of their special gems. I'm hoping to see if that has any extra added benefit, or if it's like a regular augmentation, because if it is, it's a little bit of a shame, but it's still kind of a fun mechanic as well. I am personally hoping that they're going to keep it past the season, but as previous seasonal event things have shown, such as the shards from season 25 and the Ether, or was it, yeah, season 25, and then season 24, the Ethereals weapons, it's often the case where those particular weapons, not weapons, but those particular things that we really like to add an extra layer endgame don't tend to make it in. It's really a shame, because I think this is one of the things that should stay. Okay, Rift Guardian, very simple. We fire off a Conjuring Arrow or 2. Simplicity Strength is doing a tremendous amount of damage. We strafe around and take out the Rift Guardian. So as you can see, this is still a very powerful armor. And case in point here, doing some greater Rift runs, look what we ran into. So that just proves my point that you will have a high chance of running into some of the weapons that you need. Like I said, if you want, what you should do is use your Embodiment Marauder to farm to this and get this one, and use between both builds during your seasonal journey. It will work, particularly in your benefit, to be able to do so of that matter. Keep in mind, I do stream now on Twitch Diablo 3. I do it every so often, so definitely make sure to check out our Twitch channel, that being twitch.tv/Dreadscape Gaming, same channel name as here. We do not only Diablo 3, we also do a wide variety of content, but we have been doing more Diablo 3. Okay, Greater Rift 80, 3 minutes and 57 second clear time, full optimization, probably could even get that down to somewhere between 2 to 1 minute. Anyway, that's pretty much going to do it for today's Diablo 3 video. As always, a like on this video is greatly appreciated. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, definitely consider doing so, as it helps the channel grow. And I will see you for the next Diablo 3 video. Till next time, guys.